My name is Ned Amendola. I'm currently the Director of Sports Medicine in the Duke Department of Orthopedic Surgery. I'm sitting here in my office at the Urbaniak Sports Sciences Institute at Duke, and this has been suitably named in honor of Dr. Urbaniak. His office is just down the hall, and I have the privilege of continuing to learn and enjoy the wisdom of Dr. Urbaniak and all that he has done for the field of orthopedic surgery. I initially met Dr. Urbaniak as a resident when he was our invited professor during my senior residence day. His approach to life and orthopedics was inspirational then, and he still remains an inspiration to all of us today. His work is internationally recognized, and he has certainly impacted all of orthopedic surgery with his advances in hand surgery, microvascular replantation surgery, and the use of free vascularized fibular grafts for avascular necrosis of the hip. Dr. Urbaniak was always a leader. At Duke, he was chief of the hand service for 30 years. He was chair of orthopedic surgery for 17 years. He was the leader of many national and international organizations, including the AOA. Most importantly, though, he's always been a leader by example, always dedicated to the care of his patients, generous with his time, and always done with a sense of humility and respect for others. He has always said, "It's not how much you know, it's how much you care." I feel Dr. Urbaniak embodies the definition of a pillar of the AOA and the orthopedic community as a whole. He has been and continues to be a support for me and hundreds of students, residents, fellows, trainees, and colleagues. He has been an outstanding physician and surgeon, teacher, researcher, administrator, and ambassador for the specialty of orthopedic surgery his whole career. If you ask anyone who has been in contact with Dr. Urbaniak as a trainee or colleague, they will share how he has supported them through their career, mentored them, or made them a better surgeon, or helped them find care for one of their family members. On behalf of all the Duke alumni and everyone that Dr. Urbaniak has impacted throughout his career, we thank you and congratulations.
I am grateful to have the opportunity to say a few words about my mentor, colleague, and friend, Jim Urbaniak, who has been recognized by the American Orthopedic Association as a pillar of the orthopedic specialty. I can think of no better mentor and colleague of mine who could, should, and now has been considered as a pillar in our orthopedic profession. Jim, in over 50 years of practice, has been recognized as a consummate mentor, clinician, educator, researcher, and leader in our field. Many of us who have had the privilege and opportunity to interact with Jim in some meaningful way, whether it be as a mentee, a colleague, and/or a friend, have tried to emulate Jim in some or many ways. One such example pertaining to Jim in my own career was when I went to Duke on the faculty after my Army commitment. He showed me his basic science laboratory of 20 years, and he told me how he developed a model of having a loyal administrator and harnessing a workforce of undergraduate, medical students, graduate students, and residents to create a world-renowned research unit, and how mentoring was a key component to making this happen. With his guidance, I developed the same model for arthroplasty at Duke that Jim had done for microsurgery and took it on to Iowa. This basis for which I developed a renowned and productive basic science research program myself. When people ask me over the years how I did it, I always replied, all because of Jim Urbaniak. Similar stories can be told by the truly thousands of students, residents, fellows, and faculty that Jim has mentored internationally and nationally. I am sure I speak for this same group of mentees that developing a culture, whether it be in a department, institution, or an organization, based on sincerity, honesty, hard work, and pursuit of excellence was paramount to Jim Urbanik's fiber. And leading from the front, whether it be in clinical performance, research, education, or leadership, was the cornerstone to his accomplishing a mission or goal. The greatest testament to Jim's effectiveness, like any well-constructed pillar, is Jim's sustained endurance, passion, and pursuit of excellence. I visit Duke not infrequently, and Jim still is a valued member of the Duke faculty and department, always providing appropriate perspective and insight. One recent example of this was on a trip of mine to Duke, where in the middle of the night, Jim had me go to his office, help him dig out an old artificial disc that he was developed decades ago, because he had to show it to a conference on artificial disc the next morning. Jim, congratulations on the recognition as a pillar in orthopedic surgery by the AOA. You are indeed a pillar.
I first knew of Jim before I ever met him, and that was in the 80s when he was chairman at Duke. I always knew that Duke had an outstanding program and that he was a leader that was revered by his faculty and people who trained at Duke, and that was before I ever met Jim. And then in the 1990s, when Jim was in leadership of the AOA, I had the privilege of running a lot of efforts like the International Traveling Fellowship Committee, the really wonderful initiative which was called the International Center for Orthopedic Education. This is in the pre-computer days where you couldn't just get an international educational experience by going online and looking for one, but the AOA started this wonderful repository of clinical research and training experiences around the world, and then people would apply for these. So you'd match an orthopedic surgeon from China with a program in Brazil and so on. So I was running those programs. So I got to see Jim's leadership at the AOA firsthand and started to get to know him a little bit. But then when I became president of the AOA, certainly he was a great counsel to me with advice and support. But then I really got to know and treasure Jim's friendship when we were on the board of trustees of the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery, where we met often. Jim eventually became chairman and I was secretary, but we overlapped on the JBJS board for a number of years and had a lot of one-on-one and meeting contacts where I really got to know Jim the person and realized that we were actually kindred spirits. I mean, he was someone who valued our life as an orthopedic surgeon very much the same as I do, treasured the memories and the contributions of the people who came before us, and felt that, you know, our goals were similar, that we just wanted to make organizations we were working for, the programs we were developing, better for the profession, and has nothing to do with us as individuals. And again, I felt that kindred spirit with Jim, and we had a lot of wonderful laughs and discussions, particularly during those JBJS board years. But as I got to know Jim, and you realize what a great contributor he's been to the entire orthopedic profession, first in his discipline of hand surgery and microvascular. He was a pioneer in replantation and microvascular surgery, and his fellowship was much sought after. That's one. Two is he took those talents and addressed a very difficult problem to solve, and that's aseptic necrosis of the upper end of the femur using vascularized fibular grafts, and helped thousands and thousands of patients. So those are his scientific contributions, which he was rewarded for by a Kappa Delta Award and numerous other recognitions. But he was a leader in hand surgery, both here in America and around the world. Jim was a great leader for orthopedic research through the Orthopedic Research and Education Foundation. He was a wonderful leader for the AOA. He was a great chairman of the board of trustees of the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. But again, what I treasure most about Jim is his selflessness and his realizing that his purpose in any organization or work he was doing, his department, was to make the department of the organization better. And one of Jim's, I think, greatest attributes, which many well-known people don't often have, is that many people, the whole thing is about them as opposed to either the organization or the people they can help. And Jim was a great help in his minions at Duke, all of his trainees, his colleagues. He always was helping to foster their careers, to give them the opportunity. And I think he truly viewed his mission at Duke, besides to have a wonderful resident training program, but was to help his faculty achieve what they wanted to achieve. And he would use his connections, his influence to really help everyone else. It wasn't about Jim at all. It wasn't about personal gain, but it was always about the larger cause. And this issue of reverence to people who came before you, I think is a trait that maybe I think is being lost, but I think Jim always appreciated that none of us get where we are without the help of others. And that's maybe personal help, or to just help in the development of our specialty prior to the time that we had our chance to contribute. So I think Jim Urbaniak will always stand as a leader in orthopedics across, first of all, hand and microvascular surgery, across multiple organizations. And for me, I guess I would sum up my relationship with Jim, which I treasure, is that I'm a better person, and my life has been enriched by having Jim Urbaniak in my life. And I treasure his friendship. I treasure his counsel, and I am so glad that I'm able to participate in this recognition of Jim.
I'm Jim Urbaniak, Emeritus Chief and Professor of Orthopedic Surgery at Duke University Medical Center, where I actually still work as a consultant and teacher. I must tell you, I'm really honored to have this recognition. There are a few people I need to thank, and I'll begin with Ned Amendola. I've actually known Ned since he was a resident in London, Ontario, as I attended the graduation ceremonies up there. Ned and I have remained in contact ever since, and we recruited him to Duke to be the director of our sports medicine program, chief of the Division of Sports Medicine, and head team doctor for the Duke athletic team. Ned and my office are actually right next to each other, so several times a week we have the opportunity to exchange ideas and learn from each other. In addition, I have to give special thanks to Lynn and Stu Weinstein, who were the initiators, or one of the initiators, of this Pillar Award. Ben Allman, my orthopedic chairman, David Atarian, my colleague, Scott Levin, we've been teammates for many years, and he, of course, now has been chairman at Duke chairman at University of Pennsylvania for many years, but we're in contact weekly. Kim and John Callahan, dear friends who are so generous in many ways. And then Mac Everts for all he's done to help with this award. My first connection with the AOA began in 1973 when I was fortunate to be chosen as an ABC travel fellow. The 6 of us, 4 from the United States and 2 from Canada, toured Great Britain. We visited orthopedic programs in 15 different cities. It was just an amazing learning experience, and so thrilling, since we were able to meet these giants of orthopedics that we had been reading about in the various journals for years. We developed long-time lasting friendships, not only with our travel fellows, but with the internationals we met on our tour. I subsequently served as chairman of the selection committee for the Travel Fellows, and I must say it was indeed rewarding because I had the opportunity to meet so many young and up-and-coming leaders in our orthopedic surgery world. I also I served on the development committee for the American Orthopedic Association, and I've been so appreciative of Mac Everett's spirited work, commitment, and enthusiasm for this committee. I was president of the American Orthopedic Association in 1995. My presidency overlapped the presidency of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery with my friend, Dr. Jim Strickland. I'll have to say, I think Jim did more to help build bridges among the various orthopedic surgeons. One of my other duties for the American Orthopedic Association has been the historian. While I was historian, Jody Buckwalter, the then president of the AOA, asked me to write a book on the history of the American Orthopedic Association. Well, I wasn't sure I wanted to commit myself to all this work, but I finally relented and wrote the history of the American Orthopedic Association. I must say, I guess I've written or authored 13 or 14 books, but without a doubt, this book on the history of the American Orthopedic Association was the most rewarding. I want to say that I've always been proud to be a member of the American Orthopedic Association. While the AOA signifies honor and academic achievement, it also participates in leadership. The AOA remains unique. And while other orthopedic associations focus on education, advocacy, subspecialty concerns, the American Orthopedic Association focuses on leadership. The core ideology of the AOA is to use excellence to promote and enhance leadership in all of orthopedic surgery. And finally, but not last, I give most of the credit to my wife, Muff. We've been married for nearly 54 years. She stood by my side, withstood the many late nights and weekends and travels that were part of my job. She's helped me with my lectures, my scientific writings, and my travels. Muff has her own thing. She's a Duke nursing graduate and served as president at one time for preventing child abuse and family care. She's continued to work in this area, been a leader and been on the board for the child prevention and family care in this city. In fact, they've named the mental health clinic after her, the Martha Shager Urbaniak Health Clinic. I'm so fortunate to have had her. I thank you all. I thank you.